Hey everyone, in today's video I wanted to talk about how businesses that exist under the guise of catering to the general public, a lot of them actually exist to cater towards other businesses. And the reason why we should care about this is because what happens is that your general public gets exposed to pricing that isn't necessarily a match for the individual or the general public and isn't necessarily fair. So I wanted to go through a couple of examples today. And particularly, I wanted to highlight the existence of business processes and systems and its interaction with the general public. So let's get started. So the first example today is fine dining. Everyone likes to eat good. Everyone knows about fine dining. And the general idea with fine dining is that if you are rich, if you're wealthy, um, then you can afford to eat expensive meals, um, dress nicely to these events, and they are a high status kind of activity to do. And what ended up happening is that a lot of the middle class, they view of fine dining as, first of all, to spend their own money, and again, it's essentially what you do if you're rich. Now, that might be true, but a bit more of an illuminating insight that I learned recently when I was attending a training program by one of the big four consultancy firms was that these places actually exist more to cater to business processes and business meetings, right? So in the training program I went to, we were the client, and then the accounting firm decided to take us out to a one of the nicest restaurants in the metropolitan area of Brisbane. And there I learned that a lot of these places, again, they are for the business process. So if you think about a consultancy firm, the reason why they take their clients to fine dining restaurants is because they want to signal that due to the success of their services that they've provided, their business, they are able to afford to be able to take their clients, their high net worth clients, to nice places, right? And as a result, fine dining restaurants, they know this, and therefore they cater towards businesses rather than to the general public. And so your general public, what they think, however, on the surface level is that, man, if I have a nice job, if I become rich, I can afford to use my own money to pay for fine dining. When in reality, businesses or people who go there frequently, they aren't even using their own money. They're using their business's money or the client's money, right? Another one is gyms. So gyms, wellness centers, recovery, right? Sports. It's advertised a lot of the time to the general public. However, if you look at the Australian sports industry, it's a $32 billion industry, right? And so a lot of those facilities which are available to the general public, they're there obviously under the guise and the advertisement for advertising wellness and being about that. But in reality, they're actually aiming to land contracts with those larger industries that will pay for their athletes to go to those places. Or you might also have governments, right, that will pay for exercise physiology programs for, let's say the disabled population of Australia, right? So that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's more so a highlight of the fact that you have, again, business processes or programs that are, or an industry that is funding that particular service or facility. And so your everyday person is exposed to pricing that is catered towards that rather than towards an individual. The next one is the music and film industry. I'm going to speak a little bit more about the music industry because I know more about that than I do film, right? And in particular, I want to talk about equipment, right? So instruments, amplifiers, studio equipment, microphones, all of those, they exist in service of other businesses within the music industry. So if you take Australia, for example, I think the music industry is around $8.2 billion here in Australia. However, being a musician in the past, I know for a fact that in a lot of the music space, status is a big thing when it comes to equipment. So, for example, buying a Fender amplifier or buying a Fender guitar, which is you pay the premium because that's a well-known brand, been around, it's famous in the industry. However, you can get the same level and quality build through newer brands. However, again, people think that they need to pay the premium on that. The last one is financial news and investing. So, financial news is funny because if you really think about it, it's a transaction where people are paying for uncertainty, right? It's the definite certainty of them paying, and then the uncertainty or the chance of making money out of that investment in the future, right? And so, if just being completely honest, um, you can essentially access. So, say for example, here in Australia, you have the AFR. You can access their reports easily for free using a paywall remover, right? And I can guarantee you that pretty much people, even if they are wealthy or if they're middle class, if they're an individual, they will not be paying for that service themselves, right? And so then the question then comes, okay, so if you have a low demand from your everyday person, then why is the pricing so high still, right? For example, the pricing of AFR is like $312 a year, right? It's a significant amount, thinking that instead you could just be taking that money and investing it in somewhere that will guarantee a return, or even like a market index fund, right? So why is the pricing still so high? The answer is again is that they cater towards businesses, even though they are under the guise of catering towards everyone, right? They cater towards businesses. And businesses will obviously pay for it, one, because they need the information, or it's a nice to have that they can afford because they have large amounts of capital. And two, obviously, they don't want to bear any fines or penalties for doing what I, said that you can do, which is use a paywall, right? Anyway, those are a couple of examples I wanted to talk about. If you found this video interesting, if you had any similar insights or want me to cover any other topics, please let me know in the comment below. And if you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. It's a big support. Cheers.